We finally have some real, tangible progress on stimulus relief as President Trump has finally signed and passed another round of COVID relief. In the massive 5,600-page bill, there's a section covering housing assistance for millions of Americans. And this is the last major section that I've yet to go in greater detail on. I've already talked about the EIDL grant, the stimulus checks multiple times, paycheck protection. I have detailed videos on all of those, so if you're interested in those programs as well, check out my other videos on those. But this relief could not come soon enough. I mean, really, it came like 8-9 months late. At the start of December, around 12.4 million adult renters reported that they are behind on their rent payments. And then millions more are saying that they're going to struggle to make their next payment. Because of this, and because these bills are so much work to read, they're literally designed to be hard to understand, I thought I'd take the time to just dive deeper into this area and really see what they're offering, where they're lacking, and what it means for those out there who are struggling, what this money means, what it could do for you. Before we jump in, if you wouldn't mind helping me battle the YouTube algorithm by hitting the like button, subscribing if you haven't already, it makes a huge difference, and be sure to share this video with anyone you know that could be in need of housing assistance. This could really help someone out. There's a lot of relief here and a lot that may keep someone from being homeless. So jumping right in, let's start with the rent moratoriums. Currently, the national moratorium is based on an old public health law from 1944 used to curb the spread of a pandemic. Essentially, the thought process is the more homeless people there are, the faster the pandemic can spread, and those who are homeless are at a much higher risk of getting sick. The idea makes total sense, even though it also seems like that's a little bit too much power for the CDC to have, if you ask me, but that's besides the point for this video. Anyways, President Trump signing the latest COVID relief bill extended the national moratorium until January 31st, 2021. I've touched briefly before in other videos how despite these moratoriums being in place, people are still finding themselves being evicted. This is because landlords are also in a bad situation with rent moratoriums because they're not receiving rents. Most landlords are just small-time people. They might have 1 or 2 homes. They saved up their whole life to buy a little bit extra real estate. Now they're not getting any rental payments in and they're not able to pay their mortgages. So this is a double-edged sword where landlords need to make their money, need to afford their mortgage payments and be able to pay for property taxes and various repairs that are needed on properties. And renters who are forced out of their jobs still need a place to live. And we know if they don't have a place to live, they're at a higher likelihood of getting COVID and spreading that to others and making this whole situation even worse for everyone. And to add to the mess, there hasn't been a program in place for landlords to receive any kind of pay or establish payments from renters to get back on track until now. Stick through to the end of this video and you'll have all the details on this. This video is made both for renters and for landlords. So also, if you know a landlord, especially a small-time landlord who could benefit from this, share this video with them. So as of right now, once the ban lifts, renters will be expected to pay all back due rent. Now, maybe you can work out a deal with your landlord, but I have a feeling after waiting for 8 months for Congress to provide some relief, they're going to be hurting as well. And not to mention, it's a tall order to expect anyone who can't pay 1 month's rent to somehow figure out how to pay 8 months rent. Okay, now let's look into the numbers on the latest signed bill in regards to housing assistance. The new bill sets aside $25 billion to be dispersed among the states within the next 30 days. $25 billion is huge. The entire EIDL grant program is $20 billion, and that gives $1,000 to $10,000 to every single small business. Just to kind of put that in perspective, there's 30 million small businesses, and most of them got those grants. So there's a ton of money here to go around to help out renters and to help out landlords. Here are the conditions that you'll have to meet in order to qualify for some of this funding. So first off, household income cannot exceed 80% of the median income for the area in which you live. To find out where you sit here You're going to have to know what your income is, and then go to censusreporter.org, type in your city, and you're going to see a whole bunch of city and area data that you'll be able to compare yourself versus your area. Then second, at least one member of the household must be able to demonstrate a risk of becoming homeless without assistance. How that's going to be done, I'll cover that in just a minute here. And finally, one household member must qualify for unemployment benefits or has experienced financial hardship directly or indirectly due to the coronavirus pandemic. Priority with these programs is given to homes who do not exceed 50% of the area's median income and households that are currently unemployed for 90 days or more. So I'm happy to see that the priority is going to those most in need. It's great whenever a program can help out those most in need first and then kind of work their way up and help everyone else out. If you fall under these conditions, you will need to provide some paperwork that states that you meet the CDC's following 5 requirements. There will also be a link below to the PDF of these 5 items. You're going to have to sign this and give it to your landlord. The 5 qualifications are as follows. Number 1, you've used your best efforts to look for financial assistance. Number 2, you don't expect to earn more than $99,000 in 2020 or no more than $198,000 if you're filing jointly. Number 3, you can't pay your full rent amount because of lost income or, quote, extraordinary medical expenses. Number 4, you've tried to pay as much of your rent in a timely manner as you can. And number 5, if evicted, you would likely become homeless and have to live in a shelter or some other crowded place where you could potentially have a higher risk of contracting COVID. Now, it doesn't look like you need to prove any of the items on the list, but please only use it if you actually need it. There are plenty of people who actually need it, so let's reserve the funding for those people. So click the link below for the PDF, sign it, and give that to your landlord. Also, if you're in need of immediate shelter or emergency housing, the Federal Department of Housing and Urban Development maintains a state-by-state list of housing organizations in your area, which I will also link below. That's a really important link to check out as well. So now, how do you actually get some of that $25 billion to really clear some bills? It's nice that they extended the rent moratorium, but that doesn't make the bills disappear. That really just stacks them up even more. Currently, unfortunately, it's still a bit up in the air. This is one of the more complicated stimulus items. Once the money is dispersed to the states, which keep in mind could take up to 30 days, you'll then need to apply through local and state programs. Now, this is where it gets more confusing. It adds a whole nother level of complexity, as some states like New York and California already have programs in place for this kind of aid, whereas areas like Alabama or Missouri do not. So it's going to be really important that you check out the links I provide in the description below to see exactly what is going on in your area. Also, while you're at it, use the link to Webull in the description below to get 4 free stocks, as that offer expires in 3 days. So check that out as well. Now, as far as the funding goes, 90% of the $25 billion must be used to provide assistance to households, with landlords and utility companies having the option to get paid directly from states or to refuse the aid and then have the tenant apply for the aid and then pay them. Now, I think this is set in place to ensure that landlords don't get paid from tenants and then double dip and also get funds directly to themselves. Property owners can also assist renters. So if you're a landlord, you can assist your renter to apply for rental assistance under the program or apply on behalf of that tenant. But if the landlord applies on behalf of the tenant, the landlord is required to notify the renter that assistance is being provided on their behalf, and consent will be needed from the renter for the application. My advice here is make sure you're communicating with your landlord or property manager this week. The sooner you can get your spot in line and get an agreement in place and be on the same page, the better. If there are some major changes to the distribution of these funds, or if anything comes up, I'll be sure to keep you informed. For now, just use those links below to find your city and state, how exactly the programs are going to work in your area. There's always a lot of confusion when federal programs and state programs mix. So I just want to thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a profitable day.